Okay, so let's decide to quit for some reason. I didn't quite get its little message. Maybe it was file size. But there's so much tech problems. Yet it'd be simple to fix a lot of that. But okay, so I got cut off right at the point where I was talking about how they're erasing USA's history. So Kaitlin Bennet is like a huge part of that. That's like what she's doing. She's rewriting it, and her friends at Google and Facebook are erasing the world's history, not just America's, but that's like what she's doing. She's rewriting USA's history, and it contributes to a global thing as well. But she is involved in that, and that's exactly what's going on in that video right there. And they're like creating a fake history, and they're editing out what they don't want, and that's exactly what's going on in the world, and that's what's been going on for a long time. They've been doing that for thousands of years. That's what they do. That's how they do it. That's how pretty much most. They say that's how most people do it, but there's apparently stories of different groups on this earth, and um, different groups seem to have different patterns, and I think that maybe every time we hear about this group that's burning down libraries and erasing people's history, maybe no matter what they call themselves, ISIS or Google, YouTube, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Baraki HUD, or dancing Israelis, whatever they call themselves when history is being rewritten or erased, it makes me think like, hey, that's the pattern I'm seeing, right? And that's what this world's full of. It's full of patterns and repeat things. And I got some patterns, but I'm actually kind of fortunate because I'm like a wild card, and I actually have like very broken patterns, and then on top of it, I'll be like, let's just do this because, and it's like that's like the pattern. That's my pattern, is you can be sure you ain't going to be sure what's happening next to some extent. I wake up, and some days I eat food. Generally every day I might eat a little bit of food, and generally every day I might drink a little bit of liquid. And these days I might have a cigarette, but like a couple years back, I wasn't having a cigarette, and then I might have a vape instead. Like, that's what you can be sure of. You can be sure that I'm probably going to try to change it up. Like, I'm sitting here in the woods right now. You would have told me I was going to sit around in woods any time in my life. I would have told you were crazy and to get lost, and I would have told you how much I've distanced myself from people who want me to go to the woods ever again, because maybe that was fun when I was like 6 or something. Maybe I had fun, but I didn't. That's what I remember about going to the woods and stuff when I was 6, is I didn't have fun. I was like, oh man, what's up with this? But here it is, simply because it is. There's a lot of reasons. Again, it's a total change. Why not do it? Why not do something different? It's great. Great skill set to learn how to swing a blade and how to cut properly. There's a difference between learning martial arts and applying martial arts. It took me a while, several hours, to learn how to chop right, how to cut right? But I spent not as much time as I have everything else, but I spent a considerable amount of time handling blades. Other than that, I would have chopped myself up in this process, right? I got far enough that I learned that the most important thing to keep the blade pointing away from the body at all times. It's generally, you learn that through mistakes, no matter if you get told it or not. You really don't get told it enough to remember it. But kind of like my Muay Thai teacher, it should be the first thing you learn. Like my Muay Thai teacher would like constantly, and my Kung Fu teacher also would get on me about the same thing. Like, you know, he would be like, you're tense. Like pretty much that was the beginning of every lesson. You're tense. Stop. And so that was like the most important thing for me to learn. Still is, because my Muay Thai teacher, like, you know, 10, 20 years later is like, you're too tense. And I'm like, yeah, thanks for the tip, dude. I've never heard that before. But, you know, he would be like, your stance and keep your hands up. Those are the other two things I learned from him, which I don't. There's different fighting styles, but it's just called Muay Thai. It's pretty strict. If I get in a ring and I do something that he hadn't told me to do, then people would be like, wait a minute, that's not Muay Thai. You might get kicked out, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, you know, that's what they're doing, right? That's what's going on in the world right now. They've taken over the internet and all that stuff, and they've erased everyone's history. And according to stories of the past, they've been doing this for thousands of years. Apparently, there used to be like some greater species on Earth, and somehow they wrestled control from that group. And apparently, they used the Bible to like write off those groups before them. And I'm saying, like, good luck, you know, because no one else seems to be able to even think it through, right? How many of these people I've met at these events are, like, actually on Kaitlin Bennet's channel? When I went to the Republican National Convention, when Trump was speaking, you know, I met some of I've met, like, a lot of people in this group, right? I mean, they came to me. Kaitlin Bennet came to me. I didn't know they were going to be at this liberal event I attended in the middle of my little hillbilly town, my oversized hillbilly town. Little's incorrect. You know, there's nothing there. There was OWS protests, and 10 years later, there was Occupy Open Ohio protests and some Black Lives Matter, and that was that. And there was pretty much nothing between those times. So there's no reason to come to Columbus, and there's no reason to go crash some stupid. What is that? It's the Russians, you know. That's good enough propaganda. You don't need to crash that. That works in her favor to blame the Russians. Just like, you know, whatever she does and whatever her boyfriend do will get blamed on white people. As I just showed you in the video, that's part of the setup right there. That's part of the plan where they're going with that. That's going to be white people, just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump has like the whole nation hating white people. But who is Donald Trump? Just because someone has light skin, does that mean they're white? And I mean, I guess, like, according to knowledge, since everything's been erased, that's all there is. That's the only light-skinned people on the planet. Everyone with light skin is white, no matter what they look like, no matter where they're from. It's just white. And I mean, that's what it is, right? That's exactly what it is. They're rewriting, they're erasing, they're setting up the stage. I said that from the start about Donald Trump, too. I said, look, they're like setting this up because he came from this like crazy neo-Nazi site where they were saying a whole bunch of stuff that you can't repeat or you get banned. And then they did magical things like they eventually went after the Daily Stormer and shut it all down. So now no one can go back. They censored him because he was so brutal, honest, blah, 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 or so brutal, hateful. But the fact of the matter is if they did censor him, just like if they didn't censor Alex Jones, you could go back through their past material and you could see that what was going on, right? Like, I leave my past material up and they like to take that down. I like to leave my mistakes up. I like to leave how I've changed. Some of my stuff is actually not mistakes at all. Some of it is traps and bait. But you know, like I know, you know, I did the documentary on who the alt-right is because I hung out with those groups. And just like when I was hanging out with Antifa in Portland, I reposted a couple things Antifa put on their list on this alt account I made, right? And because like my main account, like if you looked at that, like I don't see how I would be in that group, right? But so I posted a couple things there. But other than that, I was just kind of like reposting stuff and I'm trying to fall back in line. I need a job, right? Supposedly, I need money and food to live, and I need a house. All these luxuries normal people have: food and housing, and it'd be interesting to have some of that one day. I could probably get a lot done with some luxuries like that. And I guess I got a little bit of food over here. I shouldn't complain, right? Cold food is better than new food, they say. I mean, I don't even care about eating. I mean, really, the fact of the matter is I need like something to bait me into eating, so it has to be like good. And something about warm food, I don't know, but it tricks me into eating. I don't want to eat. I don't feel like eating. I got better things to do, like trying to escape this place and fucking anything else. I just feel like that's a waste. I spent, who knows, maybe I liked eating when I was a kid. I sure look like it, right? I sure looked like it when I was 1 year old. My job at the Hut. But I suppose as a 1 year old, that was more of a reflection on the world around me than me, because I really doubt I was like in full motor function control. And I was like crawling to the fridge and pulling out baby food bottles and, mix them all together with some whipped cream and some chocolate mousse and like, look, Ma, I got a big bowl of baby food now. And like, maybe I was like 1 week old. I started doing that, and I was learning what I was doing. So it actually took me till I was 2 weeks old to crawl back from the frickin' kitchen with my bowl of baby food I made, right? So, learning. Baby steps, they call them, right? Oh, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know how many people are on my side. I haven't traveled the rest of the world yet. And, man, if these other people have experienced this stuff I have, which they probably have, although I'm probably, the biggest thorn in people's sides, because I don't care about selling out. Like, I don't even have a place to live, right? So why care about it? I don't. Oh, you're gonna prevent me from working, and oh no, I thought the whole purpose of you coming to Earth and enslaving the humans was because that's your goal, is to force us to labor for you, right? I thought we're supposed to be mining gold for you, and now you're telling me I can't mine gold for you. Oh, Jeebus. What will I do now? I guess I'll have to go do the same thing I've done my whole life. Almost nothing. So the purpose of all that, the purpose of all these games, what's been written in the past that has been on the earth, what they brag about every day, like they have the same narrative over and over and over. It's like stories. I used to read a lot when I was a kid. Maybe some of you read a lot or you watch movies a lot. There's only like 7 stories. There's like sci-fi, psycho, thriller, serial killer documentaries, fantasies, action, adventure, drama, romance. There's like 12. There's like 12 stories. And you break those, there's horror too. Don't forget that's one of them. And so that's what I'm going to use for the example. There's like, 7 famous monster movies. There's the vampire, the werewolf, and Frankenstein, and they just tell the same thing over and over, over and over. And there's a million vampire movies now, right? And there's a million zombie movies now. There's a million zombie movies, and it's very basic. That's telling me this world isn't that old, because someone would have came up with something more than that over billions of years. But if you play a video game was made in like a couple years, and a video game has limited story inside of it, right? Even the video games are just a retelling of the book. It's the same thing in a different format. It's a retelling of the books. A movie's just a retelling of a book. The book's just like a retelling of a play, right? And it's all the same thing over and over. I mean, they'll make one thing and then put it in everything else these days. But we're like the past existed, and they only had like 7 plays for 1,000 years, and they had 7. Then they had like 100 books for another 1,000 years, and then magically we move into this era where film was supposedly introduced in 1940s, and then all of a sudden, like the 1980s hit, and then there's just tons of movies. It's still the same stories over and over, but there's like millions of them now, right? And video games came up within this time frame, pretty much. Supposedly they were invented before like 1980. And like you can just see they flourish. There's like 100 Nintendo games, NES system, right? And there's probably like 200 Atari games. And then now there's like 50,000 computer games. Generally on the consoles too, they only put out a couple games, a couple hundred. Although that has somewhat increased, and it really depends on where you go. There's probably like 1,000 NES games, especially if you include. There's probably like 10,000 if you include the different versions, like 7 different Japanese versions of this one game. Blah 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 blah. But technically those are the same game. When you remake a movie like Ring to Ringu to something like that, to The Grudge, those are like completely retelling of the story. It's as good as you can get. So that's what they're doing, right? They're erasing the history. It's like when they use ISIS to attempt to topple Egypt recently. This is actually where it all began, isn't it? Them toppling Egypt and erasing Egyptian history, supposedly, and replacing it with their own. But even that, like, I can make the argument. It looks like they do that over and over. Like that helps erase the history to come in and conquer their own history and then erase it again. Just like what's going on in USA. I'm like, I don't think that's who came over to USA. The Spanish were having an Inquisition. They were kicking people out of their nation because they weren't Europeans. And so just at that same time, a bunch of people got sent to USA. And yeah, so